Linda, I have to make sure I look at you and not at the camera here. I just wrote a couple things down like I did for the chapel school teachers, which was a while ago, because I wanted to do this to honor you. And so many things about you and about chapel school, people don't know. People don't, our congregation, a lot of them have no clue, especially if they didn't have kids in chapel school. So I basically have 3 questions for you. Just thinking about all the years of chapel school as a parent, and then as a teacher, and then as a director, the progression there, and now you're heading to seminary. Have you lost your mind? That's what I said to Richard. It's amazing. It really is amazing. So just start. I didn't have to prepare a lot because, if you would just tell us about your journey and how did the Holy Spirit guide you? Ready? Go.
Yes. So yes, I started as a parent. Well, actually, I started as a church member. So I was part of the church when the church decided to create an early childhood ministry. And that got me very excited because I had young children. And I knew I wanted my children to be a part of that. So I became part of the board in the very beginning. And my younger 2 children got to be students here at what was then Memorial Lutheran Preschool, MLP. And I, helped as a board member. Then while my children, my youngest was here, I started as a volunteer. When I just had 1 child left at home, I really started volunteering in the classroom. And then they needed an assistant teacher, and I kind of stepped into that role, and then that turned into a teacher role, and within a year, the director at the time had left. And when she left, they did like a little exit interview with her, and she told the board at that time that she was an atheist. And that was a surprise. No one really understood it. But at that time also, you have to understand that this was, the school was licensed in 1988. This would have been 1993. And church school was much different back then. The thinking was that school was for educational learning only, and Sundays were for religious learning. And so even in our guidebook at that time, I remember we had a paragraph that said that if you are interested in learning about your faith, please, come on Sunday.
Wow.
And so not that we were discouraged from doing any type of faith formation, but it just wasn't in our scope at the time. And that was a pretty common way of doing things. And it wasn't until, I think that's why no one ever asked and no one ever noticed that the director, well, she was a great director, but she just happened to be an atheist. So when that happened, the board at the time, and I wasn't on the board anymore because I was now a staff member, but they thought, oh goodness, we better hire a church member, next time, so at least we know that the person who's leading the school will be a believer. And so Pastor Hinckley came to me and he said, you work in the school and we know you're a church member, and would you consider becoming the director? And at the time, this was really, my work at preschool was a filler for me, because my plan, my intention was to learn how to do hair, because I loved being in the salon and I wanted that experience for me. So I was saving money to go to hair school. And so when I was approached about being the director, my immediate thought was, oh gosh, no, this is not my plan. And so Pastor Hinckley said, well, will you think about it? And will you pray about it? And I said, yeah, I will think about it and I will pray about it. And that's what I did. So I took about a week and I prayed a lot. And surprisingly, God was like, but Linda, if I was very happy with the experience that I had had as a teacher and a parent, but I had noticed some things that probably I would change. And that's what God was reminding me of. Well, Linda, if you were the director, you could do this. And if you were the director, you could do that. And then all of a sudden my mind kept going to these possibilities that would make the school and even a place where Christ is kind of shown a little bit more, you know what I mean? And that I felt like we could really use some help in the curriculum area as well. Like that was clear to me. So I went back to Pastor Hinckley after about a week and I said, I think I am interested in this job. And he was like, oh, good. Well, you can be the interim director because now we have 4 other people that want this job. And so I was like, oh, well, now I've got to fight for it. And that was all part of God's plan, because it was in that moment that I realized how much I really did want to be the director. And so going through the interview process and having to fight for the job helped me to see how I was called to do it. And I really felt that at the time, and in retrospect, I can really see how that was all part of God's plan. And so I took the job so I interviewed and I got the position. And the first thing I did in 1993 was I started doing research on curriculums. And back then it was before Google. There was no Google, and there was no internet. So it was going to the library and getting those microfiches and just reading. And but that really got me excited about what we could do as early educators and who we could be in the community for our families. What does it look like to be church for families who are looking for preschool for their children? And I read a study called the Perry Preschool Study. And that really just opened my mind to the power of early education and how that can change the trajectory of a person's life, what they experience in that 0 to 5 space, and how that shapes who they are. And that very logically, within the next 10 years, we had become members of the Evangelical Lutheran Education Association. Our church and school relationship really started to bond and to grow. And through that relationship with the ELEA, we did a self-study that was part of the ELCA, which was really looked at us, our school, and how to become a ministry, how to establish our school as a ministry of Memorial Lutheran Church. So it was a year-long process, and it really looked at mission and vision and the relationship between the church and the school. It was a wonderful, wonderful piece that the school and the church did together. And that really opened us up to the possibilities of making Christ known here in that preschool space. And that's when from that self-study is where Chapel Time was born. And when we started talking about Chapel Time, we decided to do it every day, and we decided to do it at drop-off so that families could worship with their children if they wanted to. And we started out very small, and at the time, Lauren Schmid was our Christian Ed director, and she jumped in and did chapel, and I learned so much from her. And she just really embodied what Chapel Time is. And I have to give her so much of the credit to what our Chapel Time is, because she kind of created this something out of nothing. And when she left a few years later, I first thought, well, who's going to do chapel? And then in the next breath realized I was going to do chapel. And when I started doing chapel, like I said this morning, the stories themselves that I was sharing started to transform me. And that was an unexpected thing, because if you're going to teach the stories, you have to learn the stories. And so I really got into the context of the stories and the motivations behind the characters in the stories. And, because in order to tell the stories, I felt like I wanted to bring them to life in some way. And so I wanted to understand the people involved. And all of a sudden I started transforming. And I always loved church. I always loved sitting in church and listening to the readings, and especially listening to the sermons, because that is what tied it all together for me. And then by sharing the stories with children and their families, my faith really just started to expand and to grow. And I became more active in the church. It just all worked together to try to create my relationship not only with God and with our families and with our children and our staff, but with with the church itself. And that's kind of how this all started. And that's when, really and truly, about probably 15 years ago, I started to wonder, gosh, could there be more for me in the ministry side? But at that time, I wasn't ready to step into it. There was a lot of things happening that I couldn't control, and there wasn't a lot of support there for that in any aspect of my life. And I looking back, I realized that it just wasn't time. It just wasn't time. And then last summer, I was able to go to Greece and on a grant from the ELCA, walking in the footsteps of Paul. I was a solo traveler, but in a group of 96 of people from 3 different synods within the ELCA. So there were 3 different bishops, and there were dozens of pastors, and lovely, lovely people. But the beauty of that whole trip for me was that I got to kind of take myself out of the busyness of my life, which had become very, very busy, and dropped into a different country where I really didn't have a whole lot of friends. I mean, I knew some people on this tour, but I really, I spent a lot of time by myself. And I had a hotel room to myself, and I had a cabin on a ship to myself. And we traveled for hours and hours on buses to all different places across Greece. Sometimes we were 9 hours on a bus in a day, and I had the seat empty to myself. Sometimes people would sit with me, but more often than not, I just had time to breathe, and I had time to pray, and I had the time to think. And every day we were in the stories. We were in Ephesus studying Ephesians. We were in Corinth studying Corinthians. And Pastor Hutter, he did a devotion on our bus every morning tied to wherever we were going. And so the stories were literally coming alive, and I almost felt like the Apostle Paul, where the scales kind of fell off my eyes. And we went to the baptistry where Lydia was baptized by Paul. We went literally to that river in that place. And the bishops did an affirmation of baptism, and it was an overwhelming explosion of the Spirit in that moment. And we even had a Lydia with us. We had a mother-daughter. Mom was a pastor in, I believe, Pennsylvania, and she brought her adult daughter, who she named Lydia after Lydia, on this trip. And to watch Lydia walk in that water, and watch her mom watch her, such a gift. And on one of the last days we were there, I was having lunch with the Bishop of Southeastern Pennsylvania Synod, former bishop. She's now retired. And she was asking me all about my life and the things that I do here at our church. And she said to me, "Linda, why are you not a pastor?" And I immediately went into all the reasons why I'm not. And she said, "But really? But really?" Mm-hmm. And the "but really" just resonated. And so she planted some seeds. And when I came back, I talked to Pastor Dow, and he said, I think you should talk to Nicole Eastwood, who is our Director of Candidacy here for our Florida Bahama Synod. So I had a beautiful conversation right here on Zoom with Pastor Nicole, and I had some very perceived roadblocks, that I just thought really prevented me from moving forward. And during that Zoom meeting with Nicole, she literally took away all those roadblocks. Like, there was information that I didn't have 15 years ago that she gave me that really made a difference. And then she suggested that I go on a call with the ELCA and the 7 seminaries, do a Zoom call every fall. And it happened to be like 2 weeks after our meeting. And on that Zoom call, I connected very closely with the mission directors from Wartburg Theological Seminary and Luther Seminary, and I had lovely conversations with both. And then the director from Wartburg invited me to come up, and so I went for a visit, and definitely felt like I had found my people. I found my home. And what sealed the deal for me with Wartburg was they do chapel every day.
There you go.
And they take chapel just as seriously as we do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different, of course, because it doesn't involve children yet.
Yeah.
They haven't met me
Yes.
yet.
Yes, that's right.
So it's just very exciting. And so since last fall, it has really, really gained a lot of momentum. And here we are to this.
That's that cartoon that I've spread everywhere of the two people in the roller coaster, an adult and a child, and the adult, as they're going down the roller coaster, the adult is like terrified, and the child is going
Whee!
So Linda.
And that could, for me, that could be minute to minute. You know, 1 minute I'm like, oh my word, what am I going to do about this? And the next minute I'm like, yay!
Yeah. It's, well, you and I both know what it's like when the Holy Spirit just kind of takes over.
Yeah.
Takes over.
It's been a nudge for a long time, but the real push started in Greece.
Yeah.
And now there's just no denying,
Yeah.
what this is and what I'm intended to do.
Yep.
There's just no denying it. It's and then when I really made the decision to look at this further, when after I went to Wartburg, I came back and I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to apply and I'm going to do this. My life started to align. My life, like things, God just started opening all these doors within my life to make that happen. Mm-hmm. And the affirmations just came and came and came. And I was able to let go of things that needed to be let go of. And so that just the affirmations just were incredible.
I've often said too, it's like runway lights, and when you're on the right path, when the lights start lighting up in your path, and it's like, and the obstacles start that look insurmountable start getting knocked down. It's like, okay, we got this.
I've used the image of like garden path stones. And I've lived my life that way for a really long time, where, if I don't see where the next stone is to step on, I'll wait a second and look, because there's lots of different directions we can go. But unless it's really clear, where I'm supposed to be going, I kind of wait. And I've done that with chapel school since I started, really prayerfully have tried to walk God's path through this and wait and watch for that next stone to be clear before I take that step. And I've kind of tried to do that this last year as well.
So now that your chapel school hat is being passed on to Jen, and looking back on all those years, how have you, and you did touch on this a little bit too, but how have you seen chapel school change, other than going from just a preschool into a Christian-based chapel every morning school? How has that evolved? How have you seen it touch people in different ways?
That's a great question. I would say, I think we've gone from where we thought we were only helping children to now where it truly is a family ministry. It's we work with the entire family, not just the children. And I think the whole industry has changed in that way, but most specifically us, we have. And just also understanding, in the last 10 years, technology has now allowed us to literally see how children's brains grow and develop and how they respond to different stimulus, especially within their learning. And I talked a little bit about Perry Preschool study that I found in 1993 that was from the 60s. It's an ongoing study, actually. And it shows what a difference a really strong preschool foundation can make a difference within an entire child's life. So, you know, they were looking for outcomes in the Prairie Preschool study for just high school graduation rates to go up. But what they found was, yes, they had much higher graduation rates with this high scope curriculum, but then they kept following these kids who are now in my age group, right? Because these were kids back in the 60s who were young at the time. And so they followed them throughout their lives. And what they found was that a really strong early foundation not only will change your life academically, but it'll change your life in profound other ways as well. So these kids who were part of this study, yes, most of them graduated from high school, which was the point, but they also, most of them went to college. Most of them did very well in college. Most of them graduated college. Most of them went into careers that they've kept. Most of them got mortgages. And then they started looking at their children. And now they're looking at their grandchildren. And just the profound ways in which this high scope group, their lives have just been so profoundly impacted in so many positive ways. And I think I could see that with Chapel School, you know, now that we're doing more family ministry than just focusing on education piece, right? Mm-hmm. We're seeing the way that Chapel School can just be part of church life and part of family life.
So that really does carry into the next and technically last question. Because you are dealing with families, and we've seen that here too, and because you have brought a third service into the worship life of this congregation, which has been a beautiful fit. It's like dovetailing it between the 8 o'clock and the 10:30 worship services. And my brain just stopped for a moment. Sorry, senior moment. What do you see, a couple of things. How can that bridge, and I'm always talking about the bridge between the congregation on Sunday morning and the Chapel School families, and the incredible importance of family, church family, nuclear families, extended families. How can we strengthen that bridge going forward? And what do you want your legacy to be?
Yes, that's such a good question. And it's true. So 5 years ago, or I guess now 6 years ago, I became the family ministry director. And my goal was, I've been a long-term member. I've been a member since 1986. I raised my family here. My children are the adults who they are in response to the love that they receive from this congregation. And that has really sparked that passion for family ministry in me, because I want other families to experience that love for their children and for their families, right? My adult children still talk about the camps and just our congregation, you know, just how they always welcomed and loved them so much, and it really shaped who they are. And I felt like when I took over the family ministry thing, you know, we were always battling a bit of a disconnect between the church and the school, and I couldn't understand why it seemed to me that families, our weekday families, were not valued in the same way that Sunday families were. And why is that? And that it wasn't just here in our church. I think that's a church-wide issue. And I just really wanted to I wanted to take that away. I wanted families to be seen as families. And whether they come during the week or whether they come on Sundays, I wanted the church to see all our families with the same lenses. And so that's what I've really worked hard to do in the last 6 years. And I think that Sunday Chapel was kind of born out of that as well. And to give our Chapel School families, the majority of our Chapel School families are unchurched. And so chapel time is many of them's first real experience within a church and their first time getting to know Christ. And so I wanted to open the doors for that relationship to grow, not only between our families and Christ, but between our church and our families. And I think we've done that.
And I would like to also see, because as you said, so many of the families are unchurched and probably weren't raised in the church. We have that in our own family. Our daughter and son-in-laws were not necessarily raised in the church. And so they don't know what it means to be a member. And I think,
I was not raised in the church, so
Yeah.
I was baptized at birth. And then I had a little excursion into the Baptist church because my next door neighbor was the pastor of a big Baptist church in Lakeland, Florida, where I lived before I moved here. And but that didn't last because my questions were not valued and my interest was not reciprocated. You know what I mean? So and then we moved here. So and then I never went to church again until I got married here at Memorial in 1981, and then we were living in Houston at the time, but both our families were from here, so this is where we came back to get married. And then when we had our first child in 1982, we brought him here to be baptized because this was our church, this was where we got married. And when I, as a parent, stood there and took that baptismal vow to raise my child in the church and with the scripture, on the way home from that service, I said to my husband at the time, I guess we're going to join the church. And he was like, why would you say that? And I said, well, we just took vows to raise our son in the church. And he said, oh, you're right. So we went back to Houston, and we didn't move back here until 2 years later. And then I had 2 more kids. and then we wound up joining as members in 1986. And I've lost the question in there somewhere.
So my thought too, with our families that are new to church life,
Yes.
what would it mean for them to have mentors that are longtime members?
Yes.
I know that when, and I
Yes.
never introduced myself, I'm behind the camera, I'm Missy Dow. So when Pastor Dow and I, when our kids were little and we were in a church, when we were far away from family, the first thing I did was announce, I need grandmas and grandpas to help with my kids,
Yes.
to,
Yes.
chase them down, whatever. And I was instantly surrounded, and maybe that was because I was a pastor's wife, I don't know, but still that has stuck with me. And I wonder how many of the chapel school families would really benefit from people showing up and being grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles
Yes.
to them as well, to enfold them in that.
And show them how to be the church.
Right.
Right. And that's what we need from our members. We need our members to show these younger families, the next, the next group, how to be the church. And it always evolves and changes, you know what I mean? It doesn't the church doesn't look probably to them like it was when they were young. But we have a wonderful opportunity to really be the church and be the future church.
So if you could, in a sentence or two, say what you would like your legacy to be.
The making Christ known, that simple mission statement really resonated with me. That was the church's mission statement. Goodness, when Chapel School was formed, that was our mission. And it wasn't until, like I said, the early 2000s that we embraced that mission, when we were trying to align ourselves with the church as a ministry. And they said as part of the self-study that our mission statements should align. Well, we didn't have a mission statement, so we said, well, let's just make our mission the same as the church, making Christ known. And it's 3 little words that mean so much in so many different ways. It's simple, yet it's profound and complicated, you know, but it could speak to different people in different ways. And I think just by recognizing that we're all a little bit different, we all raise children differently, but we all share the love of Christ, and that love shows up in our lives in different ways. And just by making that love, making Christ known through the love we share with others, you know, I think if families can be seen and valued across the board, and that we're all sharing the love of Christ, I think that's the best legacy that I can ever imagine.
There you go.
And it's simple, I think. Yeah. Just being who Christ calls all of us to be.
And thank you for answering both calls.
Thank you.
The first call 30 plus years ago, and the most recent call. And you are about to embark on an incredible roller coaster journey.
Yes. It's hard to believe. I'm 64, so 32 years being here is literally half my life.
Yeah.
And I would have never imagined that. But I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to serve the church that I love, and the church that has given me so much, given my family so much. And I'm just so grateful that I've had this chance to be here.
So are we.
Thank you.
And we love you.
Thank you. I love you so much. Everybody.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
I know.
So that's 30 minutes.
Wow.
And
I
we
could
could
talk about chapel school a lot.
We could have talked another 3 days, but wishing you tremendous blessing.
Thank you.
And I hope a lot of people watch this.
Thank you.
I really do. We're going to post this on YouTube, and also I hope we get to show it at your farewell.
Oh.
Actually, we should say your launch party,
Yeah.
because we're going to be launching you into another world. So thank
Yes,
you.
amen.
And God bless you. And we'll see you. We'll see you.
Thank you so much.